What's up, Netflix fans? I finally descended into the madness starring Colman Domingo, but is this series worth your time?
I think I'm getting framed for murder.
So you have media pundit Muncie Daniels, who must fight for his innocence and his life after he stumbles upon a moida deep in the Poconos woods. As the walls close in, Muncie strives to reconnect with his estranged family and his lost ideals in order to survive. And so he's on his trip away in the Poconos. Everything's going normal until madness strikes, and he sees the murder of this white supremacist, and even though he's the one that wants to do something about it because he saw some crazy stuff go down, well, it turns out that he is actually the central focus of the authority figures in this town, and a lot of people believe he did it. And so he's framed. He's at the center of a murder conspiracy, and what he has to do in this show, for the most part, there's a lot of things that he has to do, a lot of things going on, but this global conspiracy comes into play, and this plot has to unravel itself, basically trying to clear his name and figure out what the heck is going on. But it's all about a guy kind of going down the rabbit hole, and once madness ensues, you're watching this and kind of thinking to yourself, is what we're seeing real? Is everything that's going down actually happening? Or is this guy just losing his mind? And so lots of questions in the beginning, but Colman Domingo at the center. And the cast in general, I think, is really good, especially when we start to deal with more of the family dynamic side of things, which for me was just as interesting as everything else going on. Like, obviously, the big deal is the big deal. But I really liked when we spent time with his estranged wife and what they kind of see go down. I mean, they're in the middle of all of this as well, and I thought that family dynamic was, again, just as interesting. I mean, there's a scene and sequence, I'm not going to say what happens, where he just fires a gun in the middle of the neighborhood. His family sees it, everyone there sees it, and for some reason, the cops are like, okay, well, even though that was pretty obvious that you did something wrong, we'll look past it. This series was a little repetitive, and what I mean by that is he keeps getting taken into custody for different reasons, different things, and having to explain himself away from the cops, but there are themes in play in this show, such as racism and people identifying other people for crimes that they clearly, to us, maybe not to them, didn't commit, but there's a lot of that at play, and I felt as if those themes should have been a bit more expanded upon. I would have liked to have seen a little more detail there. Didn't get enough of that. But again, Domingo's performance, I don't want to say carries this series, but you're really invested because of him. You are with him the entirety of the time, as chaotic as this series of events continues to get. And I just felt like the series continued to lose focus as we went, even though the mystery itself was interesting. There's a character by the name of Franco, played by John Ortiz. His character and Muncie have some very fascinating conversations, but those conversations often felt a lot less grounded than the rest of the show, even though it does occasionally get outlandish, especially when you look at how obvious certain things are. Yet authority figures across this series, every episode, just continue to look past things and make stupid decisions and brush things off. And when a show like this is trying to be uber realistic at certain points, yet you get those less grounded elements, it kind of creates a little bit of a conflict of interest. So I was a little up and down wishy-washy on that. But again, I think the dialogue is interesting enough, right, to kind of keep you invested, keep you on board. When Marsha Stephanie Blake is really good. Dion Cole, when he's on screen, super solid. He has certain friends, right? He's this CNN talking head, if you will. So when he gets deep into trouble, he's able to call on certain people. But even those certain people that came to his aid, it didn't really feel as realistic as it needed to. Now, it sounds like I'm being super negative. This show looks great. Right, it almost feels more like an HBO show at times than a Netflix series, and it has that cinematic quality to it that I really appreciate. It also has that intensity that you look for in a guy is framed for murder type of story, which I really enjoyed. He doesn't have a particular set of skills, Liam Neeson style, but he's got some fighting chops, just not on the level that we're used to seeing from something like this. So when he gets in the midst of the craziness, he's not able to fight his way out. He has to use his brain, but he's a CNN talking head, so yeah, he's able to do that, I think. Maybe. So the themes are rock solid. The fact that he is immediately suspect number one is sadly really relevant to certain more real-life things, and so they're trying to tie all of those things in as you're watching. But you're really just in this for the mystery/family dynamic, and those two things become more prominent as we go, and eventually turn into something, I believe, a lot more interesting by the time we get to the end. You've also got a lot of our characters having to fight the sad injustices of the reality that we're living in, along with these racial hate groups, along with these rich people, powerful people, the people at the top using the puppet strings and puppeteering everything going on, using their power, using their wealth and their money to get away with a lot. Man, this really is becoming a lot more relevant the more I think about it, because it sounds like the world that I live in today. It's just so obvious. It's a murder mystery with Colman Domingo. What's not to like about that? An experience that feels cinematic, features a really good central character, is a character study at its core. It does occasionally lose focus and goes off in a couple of different directions that maybe I didn't love, which makes it feel tonally up and down. But all in all, I believe the madness is worth a watch on Netflix. It's a limited series. Each episode's around 45 to 50-something minutes, and so you really get to spend a lot of time with our characters. Again, certain episodes do lose their way, but ultimately, some people are going to be satisfied with this. So maybe it fell short of my lofty expectations when I first saw this trailer that got me super excited. But all in all, a pretty solid binge. Thank you all so much for watching. Come back, more Netflix stuff, videos, all the things. You know what I do.